How are you? I was gonna, you're sir. You know, I did it. You're getting so many great journal books in here.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I figured it was from one of your crowd.
And when were you gonna give it to me?
I didn't know what to ask. I didn't see you.
You lost his diamond.
What's that?
He said you lost your diamond.
Yeah.
Don't let Danny get over there.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to put one of those big stickers back from school with your name.
Yeah.
You're gonna leave stuff laying around.
Yeah.
Thought it was a lady from our wellhead protection meeting earlier in the day because she had one exactly like it.
Does it have all the family secrets?
Yeah.
We had all the passwords.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Mulder.
You're gonna kind of regret.
You mean you don't use the dog's name
Dog names, yeah.
or the dog, yeah, the
I'm
dog.
not gonna say it out loud because nobody knows it.
You ready?
Including the dog.
I can continue to,
There you go.
you can finish that. I'm almost there.
Up to you.
It's up to you, I can.
We will call it a second.
Okay. I'll call the meeting to order then. Council rise for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amy Melton.
Here.
Michael Behrman,
Here.
Nancy Rondell,
Here.
Kathy Macho.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Is there any citizens comment on anything that is not on the agenda?
Real quick, since Chip is here, we, needed new handguns. And our Glock handguns that we currently carry are 15 to 20 years old, and we were in need of new handguns. It could have been a budget item. I reached out to Matthew Krieger, who reached out to Chip and John Richter, and they came up with a very, very, very generous donation. And we were able to get new handguns, new optics for them, new holsters, and new lights. So thank you, Chip. It was very generous. It's something that, yes, it could have been put in the general budget, but it would have taken a fair amount of money. And their 3 donations, very generous donations, allowed us to get them. We have everything in but the guns. They're like a 2 or 3 month order. We should have them by the beginning of the year or the end of this year. So, but thank you very much. Thank you. So, him, Matthew Krieger and John Richter.
So-
Thank you.
Basically, Kyle saying the police are without guns for 2-3 months. Not what I heard.
But when I told Denise about it, and she's like, this is an amazing place, and it's people like him and everybody else that makes it an amazing place, so thank you.
Thank you, Chip.
Consent agenda?
Just the minutes and the bills.
Are you done?
Yep. I'm there. Okay.
There were a few minor changes that Nancy had pointed out on the minutes that I corrected. But other than that, there was nothing of significance, so we just need a motion and a second.
For any public comment on this consent agenda?
Motion that we approve the consent agenda.
No, second it.
Who seconded? Kathy Macho,
Yes.
Mike Behrman,
Yes.
Jamie Melky,
Yes.
Nancy Rondell. Motion carried.
we can move on to the discussion items. First discussion item is the 2024 proposed budget. I kind of outlined this before, but the process for the budget in December is the first meeting is council, basically, I'm sorry, staff distributes the budget to council, to public, so it's up on the website in your hands for a week to take and look at it. We take some preliminary questions, concerns, or thoughts, and then at the December 11th is when we have our second Monday meeting is when we have our public hearing on the budget. So that's when we officially have the hearing. We talk about, well, I'll do a presentation about the budget or give an overview of some of the big changes or things that might be different or some explanatory reasons for why some costs are high or lower than typical. And we do that at that meeting. Council then takes public comment, discusses any changes they want or anything that they see, other major concerns they have with the budget. And then what we do is we take those changes into consideration, we add them to the budget, and then at the December 18th meeting, we come back to you with the final draft based on your guys' comments and input. And then we approve it at that meeting, theoretically. Usually it's happens like that. So what we have here is just the budget. I think there are a few things in there that we probably still have to go and review. One of them is we didn't include so we received the donation for the playground this year, but we didn't include it as an expense. So we probably have to go back and add that money in between this year and next year based on when we get the final deposit down with how much we have to spend this year and next year. So you're gonna see those final surplus lines and the reserve fund, the repair and maintenance fund, as well as potentially the unfunded liability, just go a little bit down as we distribute the cost of that. So the way it is, the donation came in this year, but it's not all gonna be spent this year. So you're gonna see it come out part of it come out next year as well. So we just forgot to put that one in this time.
And then just in a discussion with a few of you today, there's a couple errors that have been found. So I will fix those and we'll point them out at the next meeting. Because there very well potentially could be more as you review during the week, something that you question that might need to be changed or. So right now we're just keeping track of things that dramatics and stuff like that.
I guess at this point, really, you had the budget for a few days, so probably may or may not have looked at it in detail, but if there's any just preliminary thoughts, questions, concerns, things that you want us to consider for the public hearing, I guess now's the opportunity. Yeah. Of course, you can always see Nick or myself, and if any of you have outside of this. You can say, yeah, public comment.
Does anyone have any public comment on the budget?
So, and just as a general overview for, sorry, just not an overview, but a lot of people are looking at the bottom line for the year. Where am I at? Yeah, so what I was talking about with the maintenance fund, which we call here the reserves for capital improvements, unfunded liability, and then our surplus, expected surplus. So the donation, for example, for the playground, came in this year. So in 2023, you'll see it in the revenue section. And then we have to divvy up the expense section between this year and next year. And so you'll see probably some changes in this unfunded liability, reserves for capital improvement and overall surplus, which right now we're showing at about $90,000. So you can expect each of those to probably go down by about 25,000, depending how we distribute it. These unfunded liability and reserves for capital improvements are two new things. Earlier this year in February, we passed a policy, a fund balance policy, saying that we want to have 9 months minimum operating funds in reserve, and then start putting money toward a repair and maintenance fund that would be there to so we have money that we can tap into for repairing our infrastructure that are paid for the general fund, such as, you know, obviously the boardwalk is the western half has been donated for, but that's one example. Parks, buildings, like Kiwanis Park, you know, anything that's the city hall, roof, parking lot, you know, all these things that are come from the general fund. That's what that fund would be used for. So we want to start slowly putting away any money in there. But we still want to keep we still want to keep a minimum 9 month operating reserve in case something happens to the economy where we haven't received the taxes in, so we can keep the government running. So those are 2 new items that we haven't had previously, 2 line items. And unfunded, Nick, if you want to talk a little bit more about unfunded liability.
Yeah, with some changes in the government accounting standards board, which is what governs what we're doing here. If we have like our pension plan for all employees for the history of when we've had it, they like to see it funded. I'm sure everybody's heard on the news, Flint and Detroit, and they're unfunded and this. We've always been, they require 60%. They like to see municipalities have it 60% funded. We do and always have. I would like to see it somewhere closer to 70, 75. Just so we don't end up in the newspapers. And it's just something that it's not going to go away. The government's, the state is watching these pensions very carefully. And I'd rather stay ahead of it, have it all funded. We've done great so far, and I just don't want to see that become a potential issue after I'm gone.
Which will be in about 15, 20 years.
Or 2.
Yeah, so that's just the general that's just for the general fund, of course, I'll go through the entire budget at presentation at next meeting, but just to give an example of what we were talking about.
Yeah, those are just the 2 new things that have not been brought in front of the council before. All the other stuff throughout the funds is daily operations, capital projects such as, landscaping the playground, those kind of things, but that'll all come up in the CIP as well.
I have a couple of things when I was going through it that I'd like to bring up so that we can talk about them next week. We talked last year about looking at the fees that we charge the townships for using our parks. And I would like to have a discussion about that because the percentages on who pays what on that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. The city pays a huge amount of that, and really the park usage is used a lot by the township folks. So that's something I'd like to talk about and see if we can't figure something out with that makes more sense. In the budget, it's under Parks and Rec. I'm looking at Nick. Is it under Parks and Rec? And it was 27,000 that we took in from the townships. I think it's under Park
The revenue.
It would be under revenue,
Under
other
revenue.
recreation fees.
Yeah.
So what Nancy's explaining is we have like our sledding hill, the disc golf course, the skate rink, bike rink, beach. So somewhere in the history, there was a few percentages applied, Little Traverse, West Traverse, and the city sharing the cost to run those parks. Somewhere along the line, they came up with a percentage, and the lion's share of it is cities. So out of the several $100,000 that are cost to run these parks, we're getting 27,000 from the outlying townships. Now, the question has always been, how do we figure out who's using the parks? I wouldn't have a clue, short of standing there talking to every person that came to the beach. So, but I think it's a discussion that council should have, and maybe then discuss it with the township supervisors and their boards, see what their thoughts are. I'm guessing, I realize that they're not going to want to, but we have to be realistic of who's using the parks and how we're gonna fund them. So I think that kind of,
I did think Rachel did mention, at least for the skate park, potentially putting up signs with QR codes for people to take surveys, and that's just a sampling of the people that will be there. That's probably the biggest.
I think it's something we need to look at, the demographics in the city in terms of growth, age, families. What, 7% of the kids in the schools come from in town. So it tells you about where the families live and where, the younger people live that use a lot of the parks. I'm delighted they're there. Don't hear me wrong, but I do think we need to take another look at it. 'Cause
Question,
percentage,
when was the last time that they were adjusted? How long have these percentages been in place?
I think we did last year.
No, not
No, not the
the
percentage.
not the percentage,
Right,
Yeah.
not the percentages. I would say
We did have.
90.
yeah, a long time.
So definitely do. for-
I just think we need to look at it.
We do. I think another thing to also remember though, I don't wanna, I know belabor this issue here,
No,
is,
no, no.
is also the, we do have a lot of summer residents who use it there, or have their grandkids and stuff up that use it, so like, the season is, you know, looking at when we do a survey or figure out how we figure out who's doing it is sometimes season dependent.
Yeah.
You know, so,
Yeah.
because if you take a sampling in like April or May,
Well, yeah.
you're gonna get more locals, you know,
Yeah.
maybe township people, families.
I think you're gonna get more locals like at the beach versus
Yeah.
the skate park
Right.
and disc golf. I think they're coming from everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Canada.
it's West Traverse and Little Traverse, right?
Yeah.
Are the two townships that help fund the parks. So even in the summer, the numbers coming from there are, they're big.
Yeah.
So I just think it's something we need to look at again, hasn't been looked at in a while. And then the other thing that, when I was looking through it, I noticed how much postage we pay for, under the electric fund and the water fund. It's a huge amount of money every year. I think it's 10,000 for the electric, just to mail the bills out. So I think we need to think about if there's some other way we can, if there's some way we can bring that down. Email people, bill, something. It just seems in today's world with postage, which is going to go up again in a month or something. If there isn't some way we might be able to bring that cost down. Seems like there should be. To
Do
me.
we offer email for bills? or-
Absolutely, yes. If you go on their website and go to pay a bill, you'll have to set up an account to pay your utility bill, and it will ask you if you want it emailed. And that's been an option for a few years now, but there might be a better way for us to promote it.
Something.
When you get it emailed though, do you still get a paper one?
If you ask to,
Okay,
but if you say, I just want paperless billing, then we won't mail
okay.
And if you want a paper copy, you can print it at home. I mean, it would
it.
save
Correct.
$20,000 almost in
Mhm.
postage, a year. It just.
And I think that's why we only do the cards too.
That's why you do the cards
Because it's
instead of
so
the
much.
envelope, but even with the cards, it just seems like in today's world with postage, that just seems like a lot of money. So I'd like to see if we can come up with something else to encourage people to not get mailed bills. Those are my two things. Then there's a couple accounts in here too that really don't have hardly any activity in them.
Right.
That I talked to Nick about today, like materials management, cost of sales. That really could go into some other fund. We've got some extra stuff floating in here.
Yeah, they're ones that no longer really are applicable. They're
Right.
things that don't apply. We don't use those accounts anymore, and then for budgeting purposes, they've been zero for 5-6 years. We don't foresee using those accounts. I
Yeah.
recommend just taking them right out of the budget.
Let Nick clean it up a little bit. Those were my two big things, so. Parks, right.
I had a couple of questions since, you guys were able to verify some things for me, but I'm assuming under revenues, there were a couple of years for fire protection fees that the amount was zero. Was that, COVID related or, in 21 and 22?
Yes. Yes, it was. So we didn't recognize any revenue at that time. We weren't doing much of anything at that time to really incur a bunch more expenses than what was absolutely
Okay.
necessary. So then they rolled forward and were paid after the fact.
And again, on the revenue side, I think I know the answer to this, but, sometimes I'm not smarter than the average bear. And, for school reimbursement, I'm assuming that's for the school resource officer, that the school is reimbursing the city, and I would imagine that it's going up because of things like overtime.
Well, and that also includes crossing guards.
Okay, all right, well, that's,
And you're gonna see a little inflationary increase in that just for, you know, I think we bumped the crossing guards up a little bit so we could find some.
so it would include crossing guards and the school resource officer.
Right, I think, like, pre that day, I think I don't know if you were there when we changed the cost. We used to pay the school back because now the school pays us back.
Right, I remember,
Yeah.
it used to be, yes, I remember we,
And that's,
Made it a
that's,
city
I
function.
think that's about the time frame that we switched that as well.
okay,
Because the school resource out, yeah, that's next. I can't see the top to see what year it is, but
21,
21.
which one, 23 for this?
Yeah, 21.
23,
23, 20, okay, projected, yeah. Yep,
okay,
so it'd be those two.
gotcha, okay, thank you.
And the crossing guard one was partially to try to get more and also to sort of cheaper, well, for those of you who don't know, if a school employee is a crossing guard and the school pays them, then that's part of their hours per day. Whereas if we pay them, then it doesn't cost, so like, let's say somebody can work like 6 hours a day. If the school pays them, the hour they spend doing a crossing guard counts as an hour they can work inside, so it's sort of limiting how much they can work inside. Whereas if we pay them, they can still work 6 hours inside, plus they can do the crossing guard, because 3 of our crossing guards at that point were all school employees. So,
Yep.
just so you, the logic behind it. And I need a crossing guard.
And I might add, it's so great to see them out there, thank you.
So,
All right, well then, yeah, we will pick this up with a presentation next Monday and a discussion. Moving on to, sorry, it's wow, like, a small budget. Going through this plan. Similarly, since we started doing the capital improvements plan in 2019, what we've been doing is, for review purposes, combining it with the budget at council, just because it makes sense to look at what our future costs might be when we're budgeting. They do not need to be reviewed or approved together, but we just do it together because it makes things simple. The 24-29 capital improvements plan, I will, at the next Monday's meeting, I will have a presentation as well on that. In addition to budget, I'll just have a little overview of the capital improvements plan. It's required by state law, the Michigan Planning Enabling Act, to have a capital improvements plan that looks 6 years out. So that's what we have crafted for the last several years. And we take it to the planning commission. So just as a recap of the process for especially new members here is, around September, staff starts looking at our projects, like revising our projects list that we need, or et cetera. And we submit those projects to a policy review team, which consists of the mayor, the planning commission chair, and a couple staff at the city. And then they score those projects, and then we take that, we compile all that information together in this capital improvements plan. The process is the planning commission has to review it and either recommend approval or approval with, changes to city council, and then city council adopts the capital improvements plan. The planning commission reviewed it for the most part. They were okay with it. They had 2 things that they would like council to address, or at least to see eventually in the capital improvements plan. One was including a fix to the waffling of State Street, where it meets Bluff Drive. So where you're coming down State Street from Lake Street and you're going south to where M119 is, can feel a little bumpiness as you go down and you stop. Some people feel panic and they feel like their car is gonna break down or go over the ledge. And then the other one is incorporating housing related projects into our capital improvements plan. Not sure exactly what at this point that would look like, but the comment was made that we are focused on the need for housing, and there's really nothing in a CIP that relates to housing specifically. There's things that indirectly could, support housing, but nothing directly there that addresses housing. That's something we mentioned in our master plan. So that second one, I guess, I can say that we've been working with Housing North, which we'll get to later, and others on trying to find, projects per se that we can work on in the city limits. So I don't have anything specific though that I could think right now to put on the capital improvements plan. The waffling of State Street, and Lucas is on, he should correct me if I'm wrong here, but it looks like that there's potentially a wider project that we could do, or that we'll eventually need to do on State Street there with replacing our water infrastructure that's aging there. And so that could be 15 years out, could be a little bit sooner, could be a little bit later, just depending on, what our other projects needs are. So that road would be torn up, dug up and repaved anyway when we do that project. That would cost several hundreds of thousands. It's gonna be a large project. It's not gonna be a cheap project to do that. The alternative is a more temporary fix, which would just be to repave that certain section of the road with some asphalt. That could be tens of thousands of dollars, up to $150,000. But if we need, if council wants to put that on the CIP, for next year or the year after, I could have Lucas and maybe get a more detailed look inspection there to see exactly what kind of quotes we would need. What kind of work we need there, and what kind of contractors would be willing to provide some quotes to give us a better ballpark figure of what it would cost. But those are the two recommendations that came from Planning Commission. I know Member Rondell sits on the Planning Commission, so she can attest to that. I'm gonna ask Lucas to see if there's any more comments on the waffling of State Street, and I don't know if there's a better word to use, but that's the word that's been going around. Lucas, if you have anything to add there.
And I think you touched on everything pretty well. There would be potential to adjust some of the water infrastructure projects so that it probably wouldn't be 15 years out. It would be potentially sooner than that for sure, depending on what route we took. But I definitely think it would be an expensive fix to address what is going on there. And then the other thing there is that road has been waffling, if you will, for 20 years. It's not getting worse per se. I think more people are attending to it, but it's not failing in any way. So we're not in a dangerous situation at this time.
Thanks, Lucas. So the capital improvements plan, again, this is on the website. You all have it. Be more than happy to take some preliminary questions or comments now, but we will have the presentation as well at December 11th meeting. And approve it at the December 18th. Okay. Some nice graphs and charts in there.
Is there any public comment on the CIP?
I had a question about the street sweeper. The Lucas comment. That's on the 2024 CIP. I couldn't find how old the street sweeper is that we have. Not that that would tell me a whole lot. I'm not an expert on street sweepers. But I did see in the budget that we spend very little money on street sweeping costs. So this is a fairly expensive piece of equipment. So I don't know. Number one, I don't know how often we sweep the streets. So I personally see it once a year, maybe. That's down here. So I don't know. So I guess I'm questioning if it's really necessary or if it might be possible to rent one 2 or 3 times a year.
I can let Lucas talk to that.
Yeah.
We did used to contract those services out several years ago. I don't know how long ago, probably decades ago, but we did used to contract those services out.
Yeah.
This street sweeper that we bought is not really a street sweeper. It's really meant for parking lots. So that's why we actually don't use it as much as, because it's not meant for streets. So we call it our existing street sweeper, but it's not. But Lucas, I'll let you expand on our street sweeping operations.
Yeah, Nancy, we go out in the spring quite a bit. A lot of it is definitely up on Lake Street and Main Street in areas you might not see. But we do go out quite often. Like Victor said, the unit that we currently have is designed for very smooth and flat surfaces. And a lot of our roads on the edge and the curb, especially on Main Street, it's not smooth, or it's a gutter, so it dips down, so it can't quite clean it as well. The unit that we would be looking at is specifically made for cleaning streets. It has water tanks on it to prevent the dust. That if you've seen our sweeper in the springtime, it's just like a cloud of dust that goes down the street. I mean, the guys have to wear a respirator and everything on it. So it kind of, there's just dust pollution that goes everywhere. So we would be able to utilize it a lot more. And the one we have, it doesn't have a cab. It's got a little canopy over it, but if there's any weather or if it rains at all and it's not completely dry, we can't utilize it. So it would be a more specified piece specified piece of equipment specifically for doing streets and gutters like what we have. So we would be able to utilize it a lot more.
Thanks, Lucas.
Lucas?
Hello?
No.
Any questions? Comments about it?
I'm Bill Mulder, Summit Street. I want to come out strongly against waffling. Put me on the record for anti-waffling. And, no, I brought that one up because, we drive it every day. It's probably some of the worst pavement in town. And gosh, if we could just look into milling, as a short-term fix or, something, it would really be appreciated. And, when cars' tires can only get traction on the tops of some bumps, that's not ideal for stopping going downhill. So, I've just really asked that we try to think of something that would make it better for our people and our visitors.
I see the boardwalk replacement is in for 2024. And it's in for donations and general fund. Rachel and I and Kristen at the pier are meeting tomorrow to decide whether to cancel the fundraiser. I think we've sold 14 tickets now. So it's hard to know whether that illustrates, lack of interest or whether it's just time of year or what, but I don't know if that may want some more discussion before that's put into the budget for next year. Like, is there an appetite in the community to actually do the East Arm?
So thanks for bringing that up. I don't think we actually included boardwalk in the budget for 2024 just because of that. It's in the CIP. No, it's in the CIP, but we just didn't include it in the budget because of that. So I know it's on the 2024 year list, but that was one that we figured would, the way it might be going, it would be probably a 2025 budget. The problem, what likely we see if we continue to donate, thanks for bringing that up, but if we continue to bring in donations for it, those would probably come in the year 25. We'd probably receive the donations in 2024, and then it'd be an expense in 2025. There was some optimism that we could potentially get the project going in fall of 2024. So that's why it's on the CIP as a potential 2024 project. But it just, we didn't put it in the budget for 2024.
Yeah, and I think at this point, even if for some reason we were managing to figure out a way to fund that side of it, I don't even know that we get a contractor at this point to do it anytime in 24. So I think 25, we just went through the last year, got our other one just done. Maybe 25 makes more sense if at that point it's even something that's still of interest.
So that's something I could push to 2025, but in addition to what Dana was saying about continuing the discussions about fundraising for this year. I think there was one other thing that I wasn't sure about for 2024, 2025, and that's Merchants Walkway corridor. The DDA has been talking about redoing the Merchants Walkway in 2024, but they didn't, in their budget, they didn't include a significant amount of money so they estimated it could be a six-figure project, but they didn't include that in the budget they adopted. So But they want to do it next year, so I'm not sure how that's gonna look, so it's on our CIP. But that cost cannot be reflective of what they're gonna do, and it might not be reflective of when they do it, but I'm not sure, that's a DDA decision for that.
And on that note, just a budget is a synergetic document. I mean, it's a living document, so we can adopt this wherever we end up with council's decisions. And if it turns out that, oh, we're gonna do the Merchants Walkway in August or September. That's simple as a budget amendment. So these things develop and change as needs change throughout the course of the year. This is just a starting spending plan.
Getting back to, the community's appetite for the eastern portion of the boardwalk. Have we surveyed the community on that? I mean, do we know?
We were just discussing about a park survey and need to come out after the first of the year. I think Rachel was gonna talk to Victor about it, but that would be one of the things that would be included, I think,
Yeah, it might be good to get that.
the interest, yeah.
Yeah. Cause like you said, you know, is it the time of the year, you know? Is that why? Only,
There's too many other fundraising requests out there.
yeah,
Light path is a big one.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's going on, so.
So you're thinking that that will be part of a parks? Is that what you were saying? That that will be part of a parks survey?
Yeah, Rachel needs to talk to Victor about it.
Okay.
And I, you know, there's a little fine line between, is it a parks thing or would the city put it out, or, but we can talk about that, but yeah,
Okay,
we are gonna issue a survey on some of the topics.
Yeah, the boardwalk is this blend of people use it for regular pedestrian traffic, but also being classified as a recreational thing for people.
Got it.
So, it's kind
It
of
just
both.
might be helpful to have that information though. Regarding moving forward.
great.
Other questions? Okay.
Can I just jump back to the budget quickly, insurance trial and street? And I don't know if it's possible in a nutshell, but as a result of the passage of the police and fire, the public safety fund, how did that, affect the budget? I know it's pulled out in general fund, but I see there's both some items there. I see the different funds for police and fire. So how did that all roll into the budget? I'm just kind of curious how that, all worked in the end.
So in the end, I think after we incorporate some changes based on the playground expense that we have to put out, what we see is probably about a $70,000 surplus, probably $70,000 earmarked in our reserve capital fund. So by taking that public safety millage and applying it to the police department, it freed up that money to prevent reducing other services and operations and allowed us to put some money to save. So we're definitely, without it, we definitely would have in a deficit in this year for sure, probably by $100-something thousand.
And if you look back at the budget stretches back from 19 through current date, and even prior to that, you know, you're looking at 19, 20, 21 of $100,000 plus deficits that just were not sustainable for any length of time. So as Victor pointed out, you know, the revenue was brought in roughly 335,000 from the millage. Our portion of the fire authority revenues are 90 grand just for the state portion. And obviously the police budget, you know, can certainly use the rest of it, freeing up money to get rid of some of that deficit, at least be able to set aside a few bucks for future border act replacement or new parking lot, just stuff that this now is all of a sudden popping up year after year after year, and we gotta scramble to raise money or figure out where we're gonna get money to replace some of these infrastructure, so it will be a gradual get back to square one where we can maintain the things that we do have. Did that answer your question, Karen? Yes and no?
Generally, yes. Yeah. Well, I want to talk to you for about some time. Just curious.
I'll be here.
2 years at least.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. So then we will have that presentation at the December 11th meeting, go over that along with the budget. And that's, again, this is a good example of why we talk about the capital improvements plan and budget together, because questions back and forth.
And for the public, there will be a public notice going in next week's Harbor Light, saying that the public hearing will be that Monday, whatever date, 11th.
Next
And
month.
also that the budget is here available if anybody wants to come in and look at it or talk to me or talk to Victor, or that's here and available.
Item 3C, Housing North, the Housing Ready Director position. As you probably read the letter that was attached from Housing North, they're asking the city to continue contributing toward the Housing Ready Director position. In 2022 and 2023, we contribute $10,000 each year. And they're asking for that same commitment for 2024 and 2025. The position that's the Housing Director position, our director is Andrea Jacobs, is funded by mainly by two foundations, the Frey Foundation and the Petoskey Harbor Community Foundation, as well as a few municipalities in the area, as well as some other donors. So it's a multi effort, multi-group effort here to fund this position to kind of increase housing opportunities in the region. And by the region, we mean Emmett County. And so, as you've probably seen in the letter, they've increased, there's a lot of rental units and some homeownership units in the pipeline. And we work quite regularly, Lucas, I, and others at the staff, Jeff Grimm, with the housing director, Andrea Jacobs. I probably, she's probably here at City Hall a couple times a month at least. I know she works with other community members and groups. So we met today, for example, on potential projects. And so the position is, I feel, is a valuable one. We did include it in the budget, although for 2024, although council has the ultimate authority on whether or not to extend that contract. So that's why I included here that the agreement is the $10,000 contingent on when council approves the budget. So or council can say, right now we want to do it and commit to, doing $10,000 in 2024. But I wasn't, I had an idea of how council felt, but I wasn't sure. So I didn't want to make a commitment to Housing North without having that discussion here. So, yeah.
Public comment?
Hi, I'm Carlin Smith. I'm actually a resident of Bear Creek Township, but I'm here tonight representing two organizations, the Little Traverse Bay Housing Partnership and also Housing North. And I see Susan Hanna on the phone. She's a member of the Little Traverse Bay Housing Partnership leadership team, as is Bill Mulder. And just for the record, he does a lot of waffling in our meetings. But that's totally on the side. Some quick history. The Little Traverse Bay Housing Partnership started as a group from the Petoskey Chamber back in, I want to say 2017, maybe late 2016 when we got off the ground with this thing. And it morphed into a grassroots organization. There's no structure to the Little Traverse Bay Housing Partnership. We don't have a bank account. We don't have a 501c anything. We are just a grassroots organization. We started doing education and advocacy work in the housing arena. And then the problem we were having, though, developers were calling and, hey, we're kind of interested in doing some work in Emmett County. And that's where we dropped the ball. We just didn't have the technical expertise to take those calls. And I would try, and that was a miserable failure. So what we ultimately did was partnered with an organization called Housing North. They are headquartered in Traverse City, but represent 10 counties in Northwest Michigan, including Emmett. And I'm happen to be one of the founding board members of Housing North and currently serve as president of their board of directors. And we formed this partnership with the Little Traverse Bay Housing Partnership, so the Housing North can be the fiduciary and also just working partners in the region for the housing movement. And through that, we did some fundraising, as Victor mentioned, through the Frey Foundation, Petoskey Harbor Springs Area Community Foundation and some local groups to fund what we call a Housing Ready Program Director position, and that became Andrea Jacobs in that job. We started part-time with Emily Meyerson. I don't know if you remember that, and we dabbled in it, and it got to be too much for Emily, and that wasn't where she wanted to go in her life, but we were able to secure Andrea, and she's just taken it to the next level. And the point I guess I really want to emphasize that there's a lot of partners in this, not only the funding partners of the foundations, City of Harbor Springs, City of Petoskey, Resort Township. We're expanding that list, fingers crossed, this year so that we have more townships and groups participating. We also have some private funders in there. But then at the local partnership level, we work closely with the Community Land Trust, with Habitat for Humanity, the Community Foundation, Northern Homes Community Development Corporation. We've created some great synergies with these groups. I hope you agree, Bill, but I think there's some great synergies that are happening with these groups in the housing arena, and we're all working together. And I think Andrea is the glue that's kind of making that all happen. At the state level, we're also working with MISHDA and MEDC and other groups in the state level, our state lawmakers, to also try to move things forward. So we're really making progress. Right now, we have, this is a huge knock on wood because they all won't come to be. But if we could make everything that's in the pipeline happen right now, within the next 5 years, we would have 700 more residential units in Emmett County if we brought them over to all to fruition. So there's a lot of work taking place in the housing arena. I told Victor at the beginning of the meeting, every project is so complicated and so expensive. It's one step forward, 23 steps back is the joke that we use all the time. But Andrea is really helping us get there. So I just came tonight to just, thank you for being one of our early funders, early adopters of this program. But secondly, asking you that we hope you will continue your investment in this great program. So thank you so much.
I'm Bill Mulder, West 7th Street, and I'm gonna second what Carolyn had to say. Many things Carolyn had to say, and except the lawfully part. Yeah, I want to second it on what I've seen of this position has been extremely valuable for the Planning Commission. Andrea in this position has been a good partner, a good advisor. I see her working with developers, with township governments, with city governments, and with the state people. So she's been very effective in that. And I want to tell you about a regional housing conference that I attended back in October that covered 10 counties here in Northwest Michigan. And repeatedly, Emmett County was called out as having the most energy, the most projects going on, the most progressive, and the most effective. So the other counties were, actually, we have the mayor of Lake City sits in on some of our calls to learn what we're doing here in Emmett County. So I think from a budget point of view, it's a very effective investment, and we get a great return on the $10,000. And it would be very helpful if you agree that City of Harbor Springs could make a commitment for 2 years. That would help give surety to the project. And the two foundations, the Fry Foundation and our Community Foundation, feel the project is so effective that they've committed to another couple of years. So thanks.
If there's anyone online that would like to comment, remember to raise your Zoom hand. Sometimes they forget.
I think it's a great situation. I mean, I think I'm the one that brought it to the table in the first place. I think we get a lot of bang for our buck when we do this. It's really a very small amount of money for us to commit to that. And I've interacted with her in several planning commission things, and she's super knowledgeable and is doing some really, really good work. And I obviously would like to see us be doing something here in Harbor too. So I definitely think you should support. And if what you just want is just 2 years, then that's fine. But
it's consistent with the city's master plan, which specifically speaks to housing. So
yeah,
I think it's important as well.
This is one of those positions too where the city's too small to have our own our own person in that role, and it's great that we collaborate with other entities to do this. And I wish we could do it more realms like the IT, but we'll bring IT to council at another day, but, yeah, so. But yeah, I think it's worked well for staff. I know Angie has met with several of her staff, especially Lucas, myself, and Jeff Graham, the zoning, as well as our planning consultant. So there's a lot of coordination there and discussion, so. I find
He's
it
incredibly knowledgeable.
So I guess if you're comfortable with it, council could vote on it tonight to commit ourselves, and then we'll just secure a place for it in the budget.
Oh, so
Yeah.
you need
Well-
do you need a vote tonight rather than just putting it in the budget?
I think we need a motion probably to enter into the 2-year agreement,
Yeah,
and that would walk.
that
you
would
in.
solidify that it's in the budget. So if you're sure you want to do
Got it.
this, then I would just vote on it tonight.
Do you need a motion? Okay, I would move that we commit to Housing North to help support the Housing Ready Director position at $10,000 a year for the next 2 years.
I'll second.
All right, Michael Behrman,
Yes.
Jamie Melky,
Yes.
Kathy Macho,
Yes.
Nancy Rondell,
Yes.
motion
Thank you so
carried.
much. Yeah.
That's from a sidebar. I think this is one of these things that you get involved in for 2 or even maybe 3 or 4 years. Is a little short sighted. This is one of the things that you need to stick with it for a decade probably.
Well, ideally, we'll find better funding options down the road, and so maybe we won't need your money down the road, but that's the goal.
And that was a question that we could maybe talk about another time too, is if more municipalities get involved, what would that look like for the $10,000 from us? Would it reduce that cost as well? So
Yeah.
that's something to think about going forward.
For sure.
Thanks, Carl.
Yeah, thank you.
Carolyn.
Thank you, Carmen.
Okay, 3D, item Second Street Indian Town Housing Complex sign agreement. So, the LTPB tribe, they have a, housing, project that they're wrapping up there on Second Street. They're proposing to put a sign, that identifies the housing complex area, and they're asking if it can hang into just slightly a couple feet into the right of way, the city's right of way. And I'll show the map here. Kind of where it's at, so people can see this to the side. So you see property line right here. This gray line is coming there, and then the blue sign right here, that's where the base would be. And it will potentially, the sign itself hang over in the airspace over a couple feet here. Our road is right here. So I talked with Lucas about this, if there'd be any potential safety concern, infrastructure concern, and he had none whatsoever because it's so far, with snow plowing operations or anything like that, it's so far from the actual street that it wouldn't pose a problem if it hung in the right away. Now, the tribe is not subject to zoning, so anything that happens on their property is not, we can't regulate, but since the sign would be partly overhanging in our right of way, then of course they have to seek approval from us. And they could turn the sign so it's, but it's less visible that way. That's like, it's parallel with the road, so you have to turn your head to see the sign, but this way they would have it, you can actually see, when you're driving by, you can just read the sign that hangs over. This is, normally the city code does not allow for obstructions in the city right away. I kind of mentioned this in my memo here. There are certain situations where the city manager can approve certain obstructions. Other obstructions are not allowed and directly have to go to the city council, and we feel this is one of them. There is in the city code, it allows for signs. The city manager can approve signs in the right of way, but it's usually for directional or safety purposes. This is it's identification. It's maybe not, doesn't fit that. So that's why I felt it was safer to take it to council to get council's approval. And then also I felt it was best to have a memorandum, some sort of agreement with the tribe, basically saying that, if the council approves this, we allow that to overhang, but at any time, if we feel that we need to go remove the sign for infrastructure purposes or for safety, for whatever, we have that right to go remove it to do what we need to do at no cost to us. So I just So I think it's very fair. It's very, you know, we've done this with other people, other things, but we usually have I would say quite rigorous process with Lucas to make sure that he's investigating that it doesn't cause a problem to our infrastructure or to the city. So I think it's good, unless Kyle or Lucas have any comments, but I think it's a fine, especially because it's just hanging over the air and it's not near the street. So
Can you show what it looks like? 'Cause that wasn't.
I don't have it on this computer, but I
What's
could.
that?
I did email it to you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I saw it, but I
Okay.
didn't know if it, like.
Yeah, no.
So what is the right of way? What is that? Or how many feet?
Is it 33 from the center?
It is generally 33 from the center. This one is, I don't know exactly right here what it says, but maybe Lucas, I'll ask him on you. Lucas, if you can, do you remember how far from the road edge the property or that sign will be?
Exactly. It is a 66 wide right of way there. Where they place the sign is probably going to be, the base of the sign will be between 2 and 3 feet away from the right of way, and then it'll overhang into it a couple feet.
So do you know how far away that is from the edge of the road? If it's, let's see, 33 feet.
Oh, from the edge, it would be approximately, it'd be like 22 feet off the road.
Okay.
It's a long way.
That makes sense. That was my concern.
Is there any public comment?
I always like this for budget.
Would it,
So exciting.
if the city were to decide to extend the sidewalk, would that interfere at all?
I
I
know.
think it ends right before the park, and if they ever did anything with that park and wanted to extend that sidewalk,
That's one of those cases that if it did,
Yeah.
we could,
they would.
we would notify them. They have 30 days to remove it, yeah, basically. Or readjust, how they do it.
I did ask if it was going to be lit. And I think it is. So we can't say they can or can't light it, but I don't know how we would handle, it, but hopefully the direction of the light would not be toward any of the neighbors' homes. Wouldn't shine like across the street or whatever. I think it's gonna be lit from down below.
Would they have to put the lights in our right of way if the
No.
sign is, the sign is hanging
Yeah.
over?
It's likely that the
Yeah.
lights won't be in the right
Won't be
way.
in the
No,
right.
we probably wouldn't allow that, but
Yeah.
I think what Nancy's asking here is that because it's gonna be partially hanging in a right of way, we don't want that light to direct, into the
Be on an
road.
angle.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
so it's a
just
big-
needs to be at the right kind of angle so it lights the sign and not the surrounding area. Probably do that anyway, but I don't have a problem with hanging a foot into the airspace.
Right.
It's fine.
And usually most times from people, what we get are kind of obstructions in the right of way tend to be like boulders or monuments, stuff like that, which a little bit more difficult to work with and allow than something that's hanging in airspace that's so far away from a road or a sidewalk.
It shouldn't cause any sight problems at all. It's not that big.
This is their curb cut right here, so it's, as you can see, this. So, yeah, we would need just a motion to sign this memorandum of agreement, allowing them to place it in the airspace right away.
Anybody else make a motion?
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we sign the agreement that allows the sign to hang partially in the city's right of way.
I'll second.
Kathy Macho,
Yes.
Jamie Melky,
Yes.
Michael Behrman,
Yes.
and Nancy Rondell.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Next on the agenda is city manager's report. I do want to remind everyone as part of the report that we are appointing board members and commission members at the December 18th meeting, so appointing or reappointing members. So for those that are in the public that still may be deciding whether or not they want to apply, I would like those to me so I can prepare the council packet by December 14th. So if you have any applications that you want to submit, that's a Thursday. So if you get to me by Thursday, December 14th, that would be helpful. As mentioned earlier here, we are fundraising for two projects, the Eastern Boardwalk reconstruction and the bike path extension. Of course, as you heard from Dana Mulder, that peer fundraiser dinner is gonna be up for discussion, but you can contact Rachel for both of those fundraisers if you need more information. And this update about open house is late, but it was meant for those people who read it on Friday or Saturday. Not a whole lot going on. I do like to keep council update with what's going on with our website and social media, just so we see how many people are engaging in our content. We have, as you can see, a variety of ways that we reach out to people. We have obviously the website, but we do have email notices, which we're at 218 people have subscribed to that, which is a pretty good number. It increases by a couple every few weeks. We have a text message communication system, Text.my.gov. We have 73 people signed up to receive those. And we use these as a city for different things, like the email notices are mostly for newsletters and meetings, while the text message communication is twofold. One is for texting when we have like a citywide event going on to let people know roads are closed or something's going on, or people can text the city and about specific questions, like when is brush and leaf pickup, and then they can either get an automated reply or they can speak to staff. So it kind of just a different way. Social media, we do have Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So we're pretty diverse, I think, in how we reach out to people and get in touch with people. So we're always looking at ways to improve that, but I like to just keep you guys apprised to what's how we're doing in that regards. And then as far as we didn't have any boards, commissions, committees meetings since the last council meeting, and my only meeting or event meeting of note, and I don't include all my meetings, I meet with people daily, but like things that are outside like the city usually. And I met with our Northern Michigan city managers. We usually have a lunch meeting once a month in Gaylord or somewhere else. And this time I actually saw Rachel Smolinski, who's used to work for our DDA here, as city manager at Alpena now. So, but anyway, so that's really all that was going on there. Any other questions about city operations administration? Next is boards and commissions, but I have nothing for that.
New or old business?
Hmm?
New or old business? You think it's a trend? Yeah.
Good job, Mary.